So today on the podcast, we begin another round of news and analysis stories, and we have a lot to cover. From a new attraction at Animal Kingdom to an unusual store that just opened over at Disney Springs, to a shift from a demand-centered model for selling theme park tickets to possibly a yield-focused model in which Disney follows at least some other companies into strategies that focus on more profitable sales to upper-end customers who are presently benefiting from a very hot stock market. As the market tends to move in cycles, I'm guessing that this yield strategy will also be part of a cycle as well. Once the hot stock market goes away, Disney will likely need to readjust its strategies again. But this yield strategy may get Disney through a very rough patch at the parks when there's very little new of merit to offer guests and when demand is clearly lower than it was before the pandemic. But by saying all that, I'm already starting to move into the material for today, so let's just jump into the stories. Let's start this episode with some walk-around news focused on Walt Disney World. And let me put this up front. I'm recording this segment here late on Wednesday night, right before I go out to Florida. I'll be in Florida to attend IAAPA and to walk through the resort to see what's changed over the last few weeks. I will add at least one segment, maybe two after I get there, but let's start with this news here first. Disney has recently filed a new permit for work on the Enchanted Tiki Room at the Magic Kingdom. It would probably be worth mentioning that it's with a company that tends to do larger projects. This company redid Planet Hollywood at Disney Springs. They created the multi-room restaurant Takumi Thai at Epcot, and they are presently involved with the demo of Muppets Courtyard, specifically with the Muppet Vision Theater and Mama Melrose and other developments for that project there. The project for the Tiki Room is likely for work on the building itself, not the show. But the permit has a long expiration date. It doesn't expire until November 4th, 2026, so this likely is not for a minor fix like a broken pipe, but something more structural. And with that, it does set up the possibility for larger changes to come to the Tiki Room. As far as I can see right now, there's no official downtime scheduled for the show, at least yet. This may actually be for something as mundane as refiguring entrance and exit space for those hard ticket parties, as the Tiki Room is one of the main distribution points for Christmas cookies and Halloween candy. But as Disney pushes away from tradition, and yeah, Rivers of America is dry now and most of the structures on the island have been removed, I'm pretty sure that in the mind of many current executives from a financial standpoint, a Tiki Room that has a nod to either Moana or maybe Lilo and Stitch has gotta seem appealing in terms of being an attendance driver. Stitch has already been included in the Tiki Room over at Tokyo Disneyland, and if you look at other re-themes around Disney property right now, the Country Bears focused on Disney standards, a Tree of Life rethemed for Zootopia, Muppets rethemed to Monsters Incorporated. A minor change in theming here for an opening day attraction that dates back to 1971 would follow this same ongoing trend. The possible retheme is just speculation on my part, but there is a work permit for Tiki Room, most likely on the building. I do think that the Tiki Room is generally safe in this location from being removed entirely. The building is hemmed in by other structures, and the existing space is far too small for anything except a similar show. The Tiki Room, under new management from years ago, with its sardonic and sarcastic tone, simply didn't fit the vibe of Walt's Tiki Room. The original Tiki Room and the slightly shorter version of the Tiki Room that plays there now moves between tones of vaudeville humor, sincere appreciation of Polynesian culture, and mythic wonders about the islands themselves. I would say that these elements are the general vibe that Disney regulars expect from the show. Under new management, which was that Tiki Room replacement show years ago, with its bombastic sitcom-style humor, didn't just change the characters in the show, it created a presentation that didn't expand the emotional framework or vibe of the original attraction. But personally, a respectful nod to Moana or even Stitch, with a song or maybe two, is not something that I would personally be opposed to, so long as the emotional structure of the additions felt like they extended the vibe of the original show. And that there, I think, is the important thing. Again, this permit may be nothing other than necessary building updates, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially with that year-long expiration date, as maybe the work here eventually leads to something more. Another thing on the horizon is the growing possibility of dynamic pricing at the American parks. This is also known as surge pricing, peak pricing, and time-based pricing. At a summit hosted by Wells Fargo, Disney CFO Hugh Johnston explained that Disney was looking to increase revenue without bringing additional guests into the American parks. And one possible answer for this is to use a dynamic pricing model, which is the model used by Uber and other rideshare companies. When cars are in demand, pricing goes up, and when there are a surplus of cars, pricing goes down. Or to compare this to something already inside the Disney bubble, hotel pricing works pretty much like this. If you book an All-Stars room for mid-May right now, it will cost you about $160. If you wait months, let's say until May itself to book that same room, it might cost $200 or $220. This, more or less, is how surge pricing would work at the parks. We're doing it in Paris right now, Johnston said. We've been doing it for about a year. It's off to a very good start. This pricing model likely wouldn't begin in 2026, but at least according to Johnston, perhaps not long after that. That's probably something that you won't see this year, he said, but you may see in the subsequent years. The three most interesting and perhaps problematic aspects of this announcement for me were, first, an admission that the old plan to increase revenue at the parks, mostly by increasing demand and attendance, has hit an upper limit. Within Johnston's statement is the strong suggestion that increased revenue through expanded demand, and by that I mean more guests, is not their strongest path forward toward increased profit in the next few years, especially while the resorts are in the process of building new lands. But rather, Johnston is suggesting that Disney would like to explore how to maximize income from roughly the same number of guests now at the resort. This is a yield-focused pricing system to increase the yield or the revenue that a company can make from just one customer. Just as with airlines, people who wait to book popular dates may pay more for their tickets. For a resort like Disney, this is a way to increase the cost for those who are able or willing to pay more. Same product, not increased demand, simply higher yield from the same customer. And the troubling part is the admission that the parks right now don't have a reasonable path to increase demand. That is, the overall number of unique people who are going to the resorts is not going to rise anytime soon. Second, this is a strategy to further move guests away from peak days. Those peak days will be even more expensive, which will move even more guests into moderately priced periods of visitation, such as January or September, thereby adding guests to parks during periods when they are presently not very busy. And third, this is just another way, through price comparison, to make some days at Disney, though already expensive, look like a relative bargain. And beyond this, there are probably a few other things that are in play with this plan. Again, I'll put out a list of 3 things. First, this is another way to move guests over to annual passes, as annual passes will look like a better buy now, which is a way to increase revenue by bringing the same people back to the resort to spend more money there. Simply for a few dollars more, you could probably get an annual pass and make 2 trips to Disney, not just 1 this year. Again, this is a suggestion that a visitation limit has been reached with unique customers, and that it's a stronger path forward for Disney to bring the same people back more often. This, again, is a function of yield, getting more from the same customers through repeat visits, rather than looking to expand the number of unique customers who overall visit the parks in a single year. Second, this is also a way to shift guest behavior, specifically, again, a way to move guests to less popular parks. And Animal Kingdom, I'm looking at you right now. If Hollywood Studios is, let's say $200 for a certain day, but Animal Kingdom is still $120 for that same day, guess which park is going to have a few more guests going to it that it didn't have with simple date-based pricing. And lastly, third, hopefully, and I realize that this sounds a little optimistic and maybe even naive, some of that additional money hopefully will pay for even more cast members to work busy days and to make those peak periods as enjoyable as possible for the guests who are in very crowded parks. To look at the big picture, let's put it this way. In terms of overall guest experience, this type of pricing model will likely be an incentive to buy date-based tickets early before demand pushes up pricing on popular days. It's also, though, yet another variable that makes planning a Disney vacation less predictable, as prices will change perhaps daily, much like prices presently do for airline tickets. This will be something like the same model for airlines as the plane fills, prices go up for the remaining seats. But in terms of risk exposure for Disney, I think this is actually the biggest concern, even more than the higher costs. This new element of variable pricing makes it even more difficult to financially plan for a Disney vacation unless everything is purchased months in advance. I think the hassle factor here will be the biggest hurdle that potential customers will need to get over in terms of planning for a vacation in Florida. And to close up this segment, let me add this. I'm 99% certain that if Disney does roll out dynamic pricing, one of the comparable industries that they will point to will be the airlines. But customers have accepted dynamic pricing in airfares because all the airlines participate in this model. Imagine what would happen if only some airlines used dynamic pricing. Let's say that United used dynamic pricing, but Delta didn't. How might that change customer preference and buying behavior? Now imagine how this scenario might change customer behavior in Florida if Disney adopted dynamic pricing for park tickets there, but Universal didn't. And that would lead to some very interesting times. Next on the list is the new Drop Shop over at Disney Springs. As I record this, the Drop Shop is not open, but it will open this coming weekend. I received more email about the Drop Shop this past week from people I know than I did about any other topic. The Drop Shop will be in the Marketplace Co-op at Disney Springs, basically a stone's throw from the World of Disney store. The Co-op is the area that features boutique specialty shops or maybe boutique alcoves all under a common roof. There were recently areas for on-demand D-Tech items, clothing branded for Disney Run, and so on. And in those emails I received from friends, the question was mostly, hey, what's up with this? Let me break it down and then give a little commentary. The Drop Shop is going to combine two kind of recent trends into a single retail space. And I'll put this up front. I think that both of these trends peaked a while ago. But still, Disney is at least gesturing publicly that this shop area should be very popular. Upon opening, the Drop Shop will have a virtual wait list for entry. Also, there will be no DVC, AP, and cast member discounts there as well. So, what are these two trends that the Drop Shop continues? The first one is this: blind buys or blind boxes of collectible merchandise. That's what the Drop Shop will sell. This is the Pop Mart phenomenon. Pop Mart is a toy company in China that sells blind boxes. You buy a box, you don't know what's in it. Pop Mart licenses IP to create Harry Potter, Powerpuff, and Disney items. But I think they're best known now for the Labubu dolls. Their items in these boxes are sold in stores and through an awful lot of vending machines, with the package disguising what's inside. It could be something rare and valuable inside the box, or it could be something fairly common and less valuable. The rare items can be resold on sites like eBay, usually for a substantial profit. The common items are often worth less on the resale market than what you paid for them. So this is a combination of the mystery pin boxes, a claw machine, and maybe even a touch of gambling such as like a slot machine, all rolled up into the purchase of presumably a collectible toy. This trend is popular overseas. There's even a very small Pop Mart theme park called Popland in Beijing, China. But it's only 10 acres and mostly features restaurants, exhibit areas, and of course those shops. The blind box trend broadly entered American pop culture with the Labubu dolls, but that trend appears to have peaked months ago. While Labubu dolls have existed ever since 2019, they never gained much traction in America until they were associated with popular singers like Rihanna and Dua Lipa. But this trend of blind buying Labubu dolls appears to have peaked at the end of spring of this past year, around early June. So in this shop, Disney is apparently hoping to revitalize interest in the blind box phenomenon that was more popular 6 months ago than it is right now. The other trend the shop focuses on is unboxing videos. These have been around online since 2006 on YouTube. The big spike in unboxing videos was around 2013 or 2014 during the holiday seasons. But there's still an audience for them. Collectively, unboxing videos got over 20 billion views last year. These unboxing videos also received a push in popularity from unboxing videos of blind box purchases of Labubu dolls. There's even a standard format for these videos. You show the unopened box, you open it slowly, you show the figure that was inside, and then maybe show your overall collection. The intrigue of the video revolves around the mystery of what's inside the box and then observing how the person reacts to it. But again, this is not a trend that's on the rise. This trend is moving in that other direction, which is down. So this store is going to combine these two trends into a single space. This is from their press release. You'll be able to shop blind box releases, exclusive merchandise, and fan collectible brands like Cosby, Beast Kingdom, and Pop Mart. Cosby is based in Hong Kong, Beast Kingdom is based in Taiwan, and Pop Mart, as we mentioned, is based in Beijing, China. In terms of the shop, I've been told there will be places for guests to film their own unboxing, but this needs to be done with personal equipment, not a professional rig. So your handheld gimbal that's hooked up to your phone is probably all fine, but your camera cage with mini mounting points, handles, and a matte box probably is not going to fly here. These unboxing areas are probably for vloggers, influencers, content creators, and people who spend a lot of time on socials like Insta. The core age group for Labubu collectors is 25 to 34, and this post-college native online demographic is clearly what Disney's going after here. But at least from where I'm sitting right now, it looks like Disney is chasing a trend that has already passed. I'm sure a number of influencers will hit up the drop shop in its first week or two, but it will be interesting to see how this shop fares come, say, mid-January, when the yearly spending and vacation trends change in America. And maybe just one more observation here before we push on. These types of small announcements, which mostly will drive curiosity browsing, highlight just how important it is that the new lands and new rides are high-quality experiences. The drop shop at Disney Springs is, at best, a novelty experience, one that maybe brings in some new business, but also illuminates how necessary big announcements are for the resort to succeed moving forward. But those big announcements, specifically in terms of opening dates for e-ticket rides, are still a way off. And so I would expect a few more of these curiosity-based retail experiences to be opening between now and probably the end of 2027. Next up is the new Zootopia show over at the Tree of Life in Animal Kingdom, which premiered earlier this month. This is the 3D film that replaced It's Tough to Be a Bug, another 3D film that was an opening day attraction for Animal Kingdom. The new film uses a familiar set of in-theater effects. There's one main animatronic off to the side, and that's Clawhauser. Also, a second animatronic briefly included toward the end of the presentation. This second animatronic character is a surprise, so I'm not going to ruin that for you. The length of the film is about the same, roughly 9 minutes, though the new Zootopia offering is maybe a few seconds longer. And the structure of the new film is very much like the structure of the film that just left. In It's Tough to Be a Bug, the ant flick introduces circus acts performed by other bugs and spiders, and then something goes wrong. In the Zootopia film, the host, Heidi Howler, more on that in a moment, says that she'll take us to different biomes to see how various animals are celebrating this day of community through dance and other things. For example, over in Tundra Town, We see the predator and prey ballet on ice, with polar bears dancing or skating with their prey. This sequence features Kozlov, the polar bear henchman who works with Mr. Big in the first film, but then as the area suspiciously heats up, the ice beneath Kozlov melts and he falls into the drink, and the entire dance becomes a debacle. At this point, Judy and Nick do show up and determine that this all looks like sabotage, and then we're off to another biome where similar things go wrong. A few things here. Judy and Nick are in the movie. They aren't the major focus, but they're there. They're in it for a little over 2 minutes. Again, I'm going to go back to my original suggestion. I suspect that the attraction is focusing on other characters, such as Clawhauser, who is a pretty good animatronic. Suggests that Disney is considering saving Nick and Judy, specifically in animatronic form, for perhaps a subsequent ride. Also with this, the PR materials that Disney sent out earlier this year had a really nice head fake in it. It's been so long since I've seen sincere misdirection in press materials from Disney that it wasn't even a possibility in my mind. So on that, Disney, honestly, nice job. The new host, Heidi Haller, isn't exactly a new host. And if you haven't seen the film, I won't fully ruin that for you. But as you watch the early parts of the film, listen to the voice and maybe consider which character in Zootopia might have had a history of putting forward a less than genuine front. So here are some random thoughts. I do like this movie. It's not great, but it is enjoyable. The animation and the 3D presentation are far better than It's Tough to Be a Bug. Clawhauser as an animatronic is well done, and the show has some strong in-theater effects that I think kids will really enjoy. But having said all that, this attraction isn't going to move the needle on overall attendance. Very few people are going to book a trip to Florida to see this movie in person. I've seen it a few times now, including on Saturday. Each time I've visited, the official standby wait time was listed as 10 minutes, and each time I was in a theater seat in a little less than 10 minutes. No doubt wait times will be different the week after Christmas, but this probably isn't the crowd level that Disney was hoping for the month that this attraction opened. This, I would say, from the history of the Disney company, is the general lesson of DCA. When you hold back on funding or put something together quickly, crowds really aren't that big. But when you lavish attention and money on a project like with Cars Land, people will go to the park, and attendance will help with longer stays on property, better hotel sales, better merch sales, and so on. But also I recognize the managerial bind that Disney is in right now with the problems created by Chapek, in that he greenlit next to nothing for the parks, and instead used profit from parks and resorts to backfill losses on Disney+. In retrospect, this was a pretty bad trade-off, damaging one of the highest profit components of the company to prop up one of the lowest profit divisions in the hope that that division would do better. The Zootopia attraction will help with overall capacity in Animal Kingdom. Though the line was short each time I was there, the theater was full, compared to It's Tough to Be a Bug 10 months ago, where for the most part you could sit anywhere in the theater you wanted. And though I'm sort of confused why the world of Zootopia exists inside the Tree of Life, that certainly made a whole lot more sense with Bugs. The presentation now features characters from a current film franchise. The first Zootopia film came out in 2016. The second film will come out later this week. And let me put this next part in straightforward language. The new film is mostly directed at kids. It's tough to be a bug had comic asides and wordplay that were occasionally delivered to the parents in the room. But here this feels very much like a 3D film for kids. In Animal Kingdom, where many of the rides skew much older, Flight of Passage, Kali River, Expedition Everest, I'm okay with that, especially as this appears to be a conscious choice. The story is not the strongest. My one-sentence review of the story is, this is a Scooby-Doo style mystery played out with characters of Zootopia, but I think the point is for kids to enjoy the in-theater effects and to be lowered briefly into a film world they easily recognize. So long as the wait remains around 10 minutes, it's a lovely see-ticket experience. But also, this film never tries to be anything more than that. As we've talked about, the small wave of experiences and attractions opening this year and next are all essentially placeholders. Something the company can point to is new, but the next possibility of attractions that at least have the potential to impress are with the 2027 opening of Tropical Americas. In terms of the resort's reputation, an awful lot now is riding on that. And again, I'll just throw this out there. If Tropical Americas takes until 2028 to fully open, assuming the extra time means that these attractions, particularly the Encanto experience, are designed as the next wave of high-level e-ticket attractions, I've got no problem with that. As we've discussed a number of times now, we're muddling through the post-Chapek slump. So long as the company nails Tropical Americas, Monsters Incorporated, Piston Peak, and especially Villains Land, all of the present struggles will quickly fade away. But there's a big if in all that. If that next wave truly impresses. Earlier in this episode, we talked about yield pricing strategies as opposed to demand pricing. Or to put this in context and on a timeline, I think I'm kind of okay if Disney looks for ways to get more money from its wealthiest guests, let's say on peak days like December 31st, to keep things moving forward. I certainly don't consider myself in that group of guests. But if this is the plan to get through the next few rough years, maybe I'm okay with that. As a publicly traded company, Disney has to answer to shareholders, the vast majority of which are institutional investors, not fans like us here. Since the pandemic, there's been an increasing wealth gap in America, and many companies have been looking to leverage that wealth gap to balance their books in a way that demand used to. This can be a temporary situation driven by a very hot stock market fueled by volatile AI stocks, which may or may not prove to be a good long-term investment. But the long-time model of Disney parks everywhere has been to premiere experiences so tantalizing that they create large demand. Rise of the Resistance did that, and before Rise there was Flight of Passage. People paid to get into the parks and waited hours to get on those rides. Though it's not ideal, I think I'm okay with a few years of accountants toying with yield strategies if in 2027 or 2028 we shift back to a demand model, when large attractions begin to open that genuinely create desire. And for Disney, that desire then becomes profit. The yield model is what a business is forced to do when they have DCA 1.0. And also are facing a very large and perhaps temporary national wealth gap. And the far more powerful demand model is what they can enjoy when something like Cars Land opens in that same space. That, I think, generally is what needs to happen here. There needs to be something that creates that new wave of demand, which speaks to a wide range of Disney fans, which hopefully are the attractions that are being built now, which will then allow us to pivot away to a much more familiar economic model that previously was embraced by the parks. A quick final segment today. I did walk by the drop shop on Saturday around 2 p.m. This was the second day it was open and should have been one of its busiest hours. If you've ever been to a Pop Mart store, it looks a lot like that. Wall displays of boxes along the back, a few display tables with boxes, and sample merchandise featured up front. The drop shop was using a virtual queue, but the queue was only maybe 10 to 15 minutes long, if that. This suggests that the virtual queue will go away very soon. Maybe they use it for Thanksgiving weekend, but I think that's probably it. The store, when I was there, seemed reasonably popular. It looked like Disney was restricting the number of people in the store at any time to maybe around 15 people. But also, any new shop at Disney Springs has a curiosity and content creator factor, and on day 2, the first weekend day even, we're definitely still in that content creator bubble. As I mentioned, it will be interesting to see how this shop fares, let's say, in January. But here's the good news. The store took over the space once occupied by the Vault, which carried clothing and other items with a retro design visually celebrating the company and the resort's past. The Vault is still alive and kicking. Happily, it didn't go away. A day before the drop shop opened in their old space, the Vault reopened right across from the drop shop. So on one side of the co-op as you enter now, is a store space that feels like it leans slightly into the future with toy trends that are tied to the culture of Asia. And on the other side in the Vault are items that look to the past and carry the design vibe of 20th century Americana. And with that, I think we're good for this episode. But there are still other stories percolating out there that we will get to soon. As we are coming up on Thanksgiving, I want to wish each of you the best for the holiday. May you enjoy it with friends and family. I know I'm looking forward to spending time with my wife, my kids, and my dogs. Next, I'm out on the road over the next few weeks, reading from and talking about the new book, Making Mary Poppins. Here's the next set of events, and if you can make one, I would love to see you there. On Monday, December 1st at 7 p.m., I'll be at Book Soup in Los Angeles. On Sunday, December 7th at 7 p.m., I'll be at Books and Books in Miami, specifically at their Coral Gables location. And on Saturday, December 13th at 6:30 p.m., I'll be at the Disneyana Club of Central Florida, which meets in the Museum of Military History building on 192. Club meetings are open to the public, but they do ask anyone attending to contribute $5, which pays for the monthly rental of this facility for club meetings. There will be other events beyond these, including, of course, in other parts of the country, but I'll announce those as we get closer. And over on Bandcamp last week, I grouped up all 25 parts of our biography on Disney legend Herb Ryman, one of the key concept artists who helped Walt plan and develop the parks. Those 25 parts are now, in the lingo of Bandcamp, called an album. It runs around 15 hours. We now have many long-running series listed as albums over on Bandcamp on a range of subjects, related to the history of Walt, the studio, and of the people who worked there. Lastly, as you know, we're an ad-free, listener-supported podcast. We do just two things: deep dives on stories related to the history of the Disney studio and the parks, and news and analysis of current events as they relate to the Disney company. We are funded entirely by listener contributions, specifically by listeners who join us over on Bandcamp as monthly subscribers. On Bandcamp, you will find over 300 episodes not available on iTunes or anywhere else. But the best reason to join us there is to support the work we do here and to make sure that this podcast continues to exist. You can support us by becoming a monthly subscriber at dhipodcast.bandcamp.com. I'll also leave a link down in our show notes. So, until next Sunday, this is Todd James Pierce.